is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be discussing cursed objects. Now, last week I released a video about Little Bastard, and that would be James Dean's affectionately nicknamed Porsche Spider 500, which he crashed and died in, and it's allegedly cursed. And the response, the feedback that I got from that video was so great. I had asked you if you wanted me to discuss and talk about more cursed objects to let me know in the comments or to email me, and the response was kind of overwhelming. I was going to do a series like this anyway, and you guys know I like to do series. I can never do just like one video on something, really, because I always want to look deeper. I always want to find out and know more and give you guys all of the information. I love going down rabbit holes, right? So what started off with James Dean's Porsche is now going to be a series. I'm going to just do an overall top 10 most cursed or haunted objects. And I'm going to move into specifics like dolls, dybbuk boxes, things like that. All the kinds of things that you're going to find on this list. Cursed objects have been a hot topic of debate for skeptics and believers alike, probably since the beginning of time or since the beginning of such things as curses. If you're interested in the paranormal and clicked on this video, again, it's reasonable to assume that this subject interests you in some way or another, whether you're a skeptic, a believer, or a little bit in between. I really want to know what you think about all this. Either way you fall, so please make sure you leave me a comment and let me know what's up. I realize that some of these objects and the alleged curses that are attached to them are more believable than others, but I tried to choose ones for this video that I feel are pretty credible, ones that I definitely believe in myself. I always used to say that I'm not a skeptic in any sense of the word. I'm very gullible, naive, and I believe everything. However, since becoming more educated and involved in the paranormal community, and because of the work I'm doing here on this channel, and also in my other endeavors like my book, my experiences, and my personal life as well, that's really changed. I look at everything with a little bit more than healthy skepticism now. I have a pretty big amount of skepticism for most things that I see and hear, unless I'm able to do further research. Again, though, take this with a grain of salt. This is another one of those videos that I'm not going to say it's a fun video, but it's another little shorter video until we move into the deeper meaning of curses when I get into, come fall, hopefully, my series on demonic possession, which is going to be really deep and really heavy and also really dangerous. So guys, before you watch some of these videos, not just mine, surround yourself in white light. Take 1 minute, 60 seconds to do some kind of light meditation. With all that being said, let's jump in here and look at 10 extremely cursed objects. My top 10. Now, I've seen some extremely creepy things in my time, not just as an investigator and researcher of the supernatural and paranormal, but nothing gets me quite as worked up as some paintings and pictures I've come across which are said to be haunted or cursed. Number 10 on our list is a painting called The Hands Resist Him, which, in my opinion, is creepy AF all on its own without having a curse attached to it. This painting was done in 1972 by a man named Bill Stoneham and is considered one of the most haunted pieces of artwork to ever exist in the entire world. Every time someone decided they couldn't take it anymore and decided to either sell or give the painting away, they did so with a warning to the next owner. They warned that once nighttime comes, the figures in the painting, the creepy boy and the even creepier doll by his side, come to life. They either move around in the painting itself or disappear altogether. Sometimes they even reappear in the very room the picture is hung up in. According to Bill, the artist, the hands on the door represent alternate lives, dimensions, realms, or even just simpler in representing alternate opportunities. While the door itself represents a threshold between our own reality and the hidden and unseen worlds around us. The doll standing next to the boy is the guide into these other possible places, and she is going to escort the boy through all of them. The first person to ever publicly display the painting in an art gallery and the first critic to ever review the painting both died tragic deaths very soon after they each did this. They each met their own demise within a year, actually. Owners of the painting, and even people who are just looking at it, like if it were just hanging on a wall in your friend's guest room or something, and you just happen to glance over at it, have all reported seeing the figures in the thing come to life once night falls. Many people, and in my opinion too many for it to be just a coincidence, report that just looking at the painting makes them feel extremely sick and nauseated, as well as weak and completely drained of energy. Now, I'm going to try to put a picture of each of the 10 haunted items in as I'm discussing them, but if I can't find some that aren't copyright, I'm trying to be real careful of the copyright stuff, so I'll do my best to do that. But this painting is so creepy. You guys got to let me know what you think definitely about this one. Feeling completely weak and drained of energy upon just looking at something like a painting. I mean, could it have some kind of energy vampirism attached to it? We talk about energy vampires all the time, me and Steve, in our live streams, in my videos. So I'm wondering if the curse or whatever's haunting it is some kind of energy vampire, or was perhaps created as or put there by one. Number 9, the cursed mirror at Myrtles plantation. This next item is from Louisiana in the United States, and the property itself of the Myrtles plantation is actually said to be one of the most haunted places in the entire world, with one object in particular standing out above the rest as especially cursed. There is a mirror displayed in the great room at the plantation, which is said to be inhabited by the souls of a Mrs. Sarah Woodruff and her 2 daughters, who were poisoned to death by a slave named Chloe. The mirror wasn't added to the home until 1980 and was in storage up until that time, with no one being able to look in or view it. Back in the day, and some people still follow this tradition nowadays, if someone passed away in the home, you were supposed to cover all of the mirrors with sheets or something like that, so the souls of the recently deceased didn't end up trapped in the mirrors. Unfortunately, in his grief, Sarah's husband forgot to cover one mirror in the house when they passed away, and it's said the souls of the 3 went right into this particular mirror. There have been numerous images taken of the mirror, and in it are the spirits of one or both of the little girls. This has happened more times than I can even tell you in this video. That's how real this specific curse and or haunting is. Also, there are supposedly handprints, child's handprints, which appear and disappear at random on the mirror itself. Chloe, the slave, was herself murdered by the other slaves because of her poisoning of Sarah and her children. Her spirit is also said to wander the plantation. Listen, I could actually do an entire video on all of the deaths, paranormal activity, curses, hauntings, murders, etc. going on in and all around this plantation, all on its own. And in fact, I just might do that. But for now, here is just one of the many pictures taken of the mirror, which seems to show the spirit of one of the little girls who was poisoned by the slave girl Chloe, and whose soul or spirit got trapped inside the mirror. Number 8 is the Woman from Lem statue, also called the Goddess of Death statue. The Woman from Lem is an artifact covered in limestone that was found in Cyprus, Greece in 1878. It was passed from one family to another 4 times after it was originally owned, because each official owner in each family ended up dying of some strange and untimely death within just a few years of purchasing and or owning the statue. This statue took out almost every single member in 4 whole families. The families weren't even related to each other either. Anyway, the last family member standing was terrified he was going to be next, and so he gave the statue to the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh, Scotland, hoping that having the item locked behind a display case would end the curse or whatever was causing all of these familial deaths. That ended up not being the case, however, as the museum curator who had handled the statue, who made the purchase and who set it up in the display case, went on to be murdered just a few days after first handling the item. Number 7 is the Annabelle doll. What would a list of cursed items be without a creepy cursed doll? And how can we talk about cursed dolls without talking about dear Annabelle? Contrary to what we see in the movies about the doll, Annabelle is actually a Raggedy Ann looking doll, a rag doll. The backstory is, back in 1970, a woman was in a thrift store and saw the old-fashioned doll and thought it would be a cute gift for her almost 20-year-old daughter, whose name was Donna. The woman gave the gift to Donna for her birthday, and she kept it in her room in her apartment she shared with another female student. Not long after, the nursing student and her roommate started noticing Annabelle would be in rooms other than Donna's bedroom, which is where she was always put and left. She kept Annabelle on her bed. She didn't move her. At this point, the doll didn't yet have a name, but eventually, after walking into yet another room in the house one day and seeing the doll standing straight up perfectly on her legs without any kind of support, she and her roommate decided to call a local psychic medium to come in and investigate and see what was going on with this doll. They had also been experiencing some poltergeist activity since the doll had come into the home as well. The medium alleged she communicated with the spirit of a 7-year-old girl named Annabelle who had died suddenly and tragically, and the story varies depending on who you speak to or what you read. It's kind of been lost to retelling, but the story I most saw was the 7-year-old girl named Annabelle died suddenly and tragically, and somehow her spirit ended up in her favorite plaything, which was nearby. Some say it was a car accident, others tell the story without specifying how little Annabelle died, some say she was murdered, etc., etc. The two young women felt bad because it was the spirit of a little girl, allegedly, and they allowed Annabelle to stay in their home and even gave verbal permission for the entity to stick around. The two girls bought other toys for Annabelle to play with. They even tried to take care of and mother the doll, kind of. The little girl attached to it, essentially. They wanted to take care of her. However, very quickly after granting this verbal permission for the spirit to stay, things started getting really, really scary. It was no longer just poltergeist activity that was happening, but physical attacks, especially on the male friends who would come to visit or stay the night. One male friend was attacked in his sleep and received some pretty nasty claw marks on one side of his lower back. This is when Ed and Lorraine Warren were contacted, and it turned out the spirit of the little girl Annabelle was just a front for a demon who was trying to possess Donna, and once they gave the invitation to stay, the demon essentially had full reign. The Warrens took the doll and encased her in a locked glass cell where she remains to this day and is kept in their basement in Monroe, Connecticut, where they house hundreds, even thousands of cursed objects. Annabelle, though, is still active in this case and knocks on the glass and even growls at visitors. It's thought best to stay away from her altogether, as she is also known to make bad things happen, mainly fatal car accidents, to anyone she thinks is insulting her or mocking her, disrespecting her in any way. This includes taking her picture or taking a picture with her without asking for her permission and waiting for it to somehow be granted. Number 6 is the Hope Diamond, and I almost got carried away on a full-blown history lesson on this. It's so hard for me to cut things like that out because I enjoy history and research so much. So, the Hope Diamond is a 45.52 carat blue diamond formed over 1 billion years ago deep inside the earth. Today it's worth $250 million and has a pretty crazy alleged curse attached to it. The official color is fancy deep grayish blue, and despite popular belief is much more gray than a sapphire and is therefore not anything like the deep blue gem. There have been a total of 21 people who have claimed ownership of the diamond throughout the last few centuries. The diamond originated in India and is said to have been discovered in the 17th century. There's no record of who discovered or owned the stone first, but the first documented owner was Jean-Baptiste Tavernier. He discovered it along with a bunch of other precious gems during one of his voyages to India. He sold this and some of the other diamonds to King Louis XIV for a patent of nobility and 147 kilograms of gold. King Louis had the gem recut to a 67.125 carat stone. His son inherited the jewel and again had it recut. His son, Louis XVI, inherited it as well, and it was eventually stolen along with the other French crown jewels during a raid from him and Marie Antoinette. Many of the jewels were recovered, but not the Hope Diamond. Despite it being lost, they thought forever. It was said to have been cursed during his and Miss Antoinette's beheadings in 1793. Thought to be recut again and smuggled into England, the larger part of the diamond was found in 1812 and was named the Hope Diamond, and that's what we know of the Hope Diamond today. Between 1800 and 1812, the diamond somehow got into the possession of an English diamond merchant named Daniel Elasion. I could continue to trace the ownership for you, but we're here for the discussion of a possible curse, not, kind of unfortunately, a history lesson. So here it is, all of the people the curse of the Hope Diamond is said to have affected so far. Jacques Collet bought it from Simon Frankel and committed suicide. Prince Ivan Kanatovsky bought it from Frankel, but was then almost immediately afterwards killed by Russian revolutionists. Kanatovsky loaned it to Mademoiselle Laud, who was murdered by her sweetheart, Simon Mencheritis, and I'm sorry guys, I am not good at pronouncing foreign last names, who had once sold it to the Turkish Sultan, was thrown from a precipice along with his wife and young child. Sultan Hamid gave it to Abu Sabir to polish, but later Sabir was imprisoned and tortured. Stone guardian Kulub Bey was hanged by a mob in Turkey. A Turkish attendant named Hever Agha was hanged for having it in his possession. Tavernier, who brought the stone from India to Paris, was torn to pieces by wild dogs in Constantinople, which is modern-day Istanbul. King Louis gave it to Madame de Montespan, whom he later abandoned. Nicolas Fouquet, an intendant of France, borrowed it temporarily to wear it, but was disgraced and died in prison. A temporary wearer, Princess de Lamballe, was torn to pieces by a French mob. Jeweler William Fowles, who recut the stone again, was said to have died a ruined man. William Fowles' son Hendrik stole the jewel from his father and later also committed suicide, and some years later, after Hendrik, it was sold to Francis Delio, who died in misery and want. I'm sorry if that was all said really fast. I'm trying to remember to slow it down, but I think you get the gist. There is something going on with this diamond. Why, when, or by whom it was cursed, I still don't know, but they say that the curse somehow was transferred to it or given to it, put on it, when Marie Antoinette and King Louis XVI were beheaded. At number 5, in our halfway mark, the Thomas Busby chair. Also known as Busby's stoop chair, this wooden chair is said to be cursed by convicted serial murderer Thomas Busby. Before being hanged for his ruthless crimes, he requested that his last meal be had in his favorite local watering hole. Somehow, this request was granted, and while there in the pub, Busby stood from the chair and shouted out, "May sudden death come to anyone who dares sit in my chair." The crazy thing is, 63 people who have sat in the chair actually have died in strange and sudden deaths since. After seeing this wasn't just a coincidence, but possibly was an actual curse, the owner of the pub donated the chair to the Thirsk Museum in the United Kingdom, where it hangs 1.5 meters off the ground to prevent anyone from sitting in it and perpetuating this insane curse. Number 4, the Anguished Man painting. The current owner of this piece of artwork inherited it after his own grandmother had kept it hidden in her attic for nearly 25 years. His grandmother had warned him that the man who created this weird and scary looking, in my opinion, monstrosity of a painting had mixed his own blood with the paints he used to create it, and also committed suicide in the presence of the painting shortly after it was finished. She said she kept it locked up and put away for so long because the thing is cursed. She often heard crying coming from its general vicinity wherever she would hang it in her house. She sometimes even saw a shadowy man lurking around the painting, also despite what room it was in or how many times she moved it. Once Sean had it in his family's home with his wife and kids around, he started to have the exact same paranormal and creepy experiences his grandmother had had and warned him about. His wife also said she felt something stroking her hair all of the time, and their son fell down the stairs but claims he was pushed by some unseen force. Sean decided to cash in and make some YouTube videos of the painting and see what happened. What he uploaded looked just like your average run-of-the-mill, again, poltergeist phenomenon such as doors slamming on their own, the painting not only moving but flying off the walls, also of its own accord. He got so freaked out, he locked the painting in his basement and refuses to sell it to anyone. I'm pretty sure the videos can still be found here on YouTube, so happy hunting. Number 3 was one that I hadn't really heard about before until I started this research, the abandoned house doll Letta. In Wagga Wagga, New South Wales, a man named Carey decided to go and explore an old, allegedly haunted and abandoned house just for some kicks. He had gone away for a while, and when he returned a bit older, decided now was the time to go and face the house, which caused him so much fear as a younger boy. He discovered an old marionette doll hidden in the floorboards of the old home. He decided to take the doll home with him, which, by the way, is never a good idea and always means some sort of paranormal activity is going to come your way, and that's if you're lucky. That's all that'll happen. Anyway, the whole way home, the doll yelled from the box he put it in, "Let me out!" Hence the name he chose to give it, Letta. He brought the doll home, and many people would take one look at the thing and literally run screaming the other way, desperate to get out of its presence. Carey started taking Letta onto television shows where more than once a cameraman was so creeped out by the doll, he insisted the thing not be looking directly at the camera while he was operating it. Is this doll cursed? I don't know. I put it in here because of the effect it seems to have on people who are unfortunate enough to be near it for any length of time, like a second or two. Has it killed anyone? No. Is there possibly something wrong with it by the feelings that it gives people that they don't even want it looking in their general vicinity? Who knows? Maybe if I dug a little bit deeper, maybe I could find something. Number 2 on our list is Valentino's ring. In 1920, movie star Rudolph Valentino bought a plain silver ring embedded with semi-precious stones from a jewelry store in San Francisco. He fell in love with the ring immediately, despite the store owner warning him that he believed the ring had a curse attached to it or was haunted. Valentino wore the ring while filming a movie that was a complete and total failure. He decided after that maybe the guy was right, because at this time he was so famous, he didn't do movies that failed. You know, people flocked to go and see just him. So he decided to put the ring away for a little while and not wear it anymore. He took the ring out to do his final movie, but he died shortly after with the ring still on his finger. It was then passed along to Paula Negri, one of his former lovers, who suffered a severe illness. She eventually recovered, but her acting career did not ever recover from this illness. She passed the ring on to a young singer named Russ Colombo, who died in a shooting accident. Next, Colombo's friend Joe Casino wore the ring and died in a car accident 1 week later. That's an awesome name, by the way. Hi, I'm Joe Casino. A man named James Willis attempted to steal the ring, but he was caught by police and shot and killed. At least 3 more people, who owned the ring died while it was in their possession under mysterious, sudden, and/or tragic circumstances. Number 1 is the dybbuk box. Now, I know there are tons of dybbuk boxes out there. I know they all contain malevolent spirits or demons. I haven't done a lot of research on them yet, but when I come into my demonic possession series, I'm sure that I will have a lot more to offer you. This particular box, though, struck me because of the crazy detail attached to the eBay listing. So this one particular is also an allegedly haunted wine box. And as I said, it was sold on eBay, but this letter that was accompanying it, which was a warning to whoever purchased it, was crazy. I'm going to read part of it now. You can find the whole thing if you just look up the dybbuk box. Like, this thing is called the dybbuk box. It's the one. So this came from the first buyer, who was an antique buyer and refinisher who thought he was just buying an antique wine box. He says, all of the events that I'm about to set forth in this listing are accurate and may be verified by the winning bidder with the copies of hospital records and sworn affidavits that I am including as part of the sale of the cabinet. During September of 2001, I attended an estate sale in Portland, Oregon. The items liquidated at this sale were from the estate of a woman who had passed away at the age of 103. A granddaughter of the woman told me that her grandmother had been born in Poland when she grew up, married, raised a family, and lived until she was sent to a Nazi concentration camp during World War II. She was the only member of her family who survived the camp. Her parents, brothers, a sister, husband, and 2 sons and a daughter were all killed. She survived the camp by escaping with some other prisoners and somehow making her way to Spain, where she lived until the end of the war. I was told that she acquired the small wine cabinet listed here in Spain, and it was one of the only 3 items that she brought with her when she immigrated to the United States. The other 2 items were a steamer trunk and a sewing box. I purchased the wine cabinet along with the sewing box and some other furniture at the estate sale. After the sale, I was approached by the woman's granddaughter who said, "I see you got the dybbuk box." She was referring to the wine cabinet. I asked her what a dybbuk box was, and she told me that when she was growing up, her grandmother always kept the wine cabinet in her sewing room. It was always shut and set in a place that was out of reach. The grandmother always called it the dybbuk box. When the girl asked her grandmother what was inside, her grandmother spit 3 times through her fingers and said, "A dybbuk and kesselim." The grandmother went on to tell the girl that the wine cabinet was never, ever to be opened. The granddaughter told me that her grandmother had asked that the box be buried with her. However, as such a request was contrary to the rules of an Orthodox Jewish burial, the grandmother's request had not been honored. I asked the granddaughter what a dybbuk or kesselim were, but she did not know. I asked if she would like to open it with me. She did not want to open it, as her grandmother had been very emphatic and serious when she instructed her not to do so, and regardless of the reason, she wanted to honor her grandmother's request. I finally ended up offering to let her keep what seemed to me like a sentimental keepsake. At that point, she was very insistent and said, no, you bought it. I explained that I didn't want my money back and that it would make me feel better to do what I thought was an act of kindness. She then became somewhat upset. Looking back now, the way she became upset was just plain odd. She raised her voice to me and said, "You bought it, you made a deal." When I tried to speak, she yelled, "We don't want it." She began to cry, asked me to leave, and quickly walked away. I wrote the whole episode off to the stress and grief she must have been experiencing. I took my purchases and politely left. Now remember guys, this is all in a YouTube sale. At the time when I bought the cabinet, I owned a small furniture refinishing business. I took the cabinet to my store and put it in my basement workshop where I intended to refinish it and give it as a gift to my mother. I didn't think anything more about it. I opened my shop for the day and went on to run some errands, leaving the young woman who did sales for me in charge. After about a half hour, I got a call on my cell phone. The call was from my salesperson. She was absolutely hysterical and screaming that someone was in my workshop breaking glass and swearing. Furthermore, the intruder had locked the iron security gates and the emergency exit, and she couldn't get out. As I told her to call the police, my cell phone battery went dead. I hit speeds of 100 miles per hour getting back to the shop. When I arrived, I found the gates locked. I went inside and found my employee on the floor in the corner of my office sobbing hysterically. I ran to the basement and went downstairs. At the bottom of the stairs, I was hit by an overpowering, unmistakable odor of cat urine. There had never been any animals kept or found in my shop. The lights didn't work. As I investigated, I found that the reason the lights didn't work also explained the sounds of glass breaking. All of the light bulbs in the basement were broken. All 9 incandescent bulbs had been broken in their sockets, and 10 4-foot fluorescent tubes were lying shattered on the floor. I did not find an intruder, however. I should also add that there was only one entrance to the basement. It would have been impossible for anyone to leave without meeting me head on. I went back up to speak with my salesperson, but she had already left. She never returned to work. After having been with me for 2 years, she refuses to discuss the incident to this day. I never thought of relating the events of that day to anything having to do with the cabinet. Then things got worse. As I already indicated, I had decided to give the cabinet to my mother as a birthday gift. About 2 weeks after I made the purchase, I decided to get started refinishing it. I was surprised to find that the cabinet has a unique little mechanism. When you open one of the doors, the mechanism causes the opposite door and the little drawer below to open at the same time. It is very well made. Inside the cabinet, I found the following items. 1 1928 United States wheatback penny, 1 1925 United States wheatback penny, 1 small lock of blonde hair bound with string, 1 small lock of black brown hair bound with string, 1 small granite statue engraved and gilded with Hebrew letters. I have been told that the letters spell out the word shalom. 1 dried rosebud, 1 golden wine cup, 1 very strange black cast iron candlestick holder with octopus legs. I saved all of the items in a box, intending to return them to the estate. The family has refused the items, so they will be included in the sale of this cabinet. After opening the cabinet, I decided not to refinish it. I cleaned it and rubbed in some lemon oil. It was at this time that I noticed that there was an inscription in Hebrew carved into the back of the cabinet. I have no idea what it says or if it's significant. I have included a picture of that inscription below. On my mother's birthday, October 28th, 2001, my mother called to tell me that she was going out of town with my sister for 3 days, and we postponed celebrating her birthday together until she returned. On October 31st, 2001, my mother came to my shop. We were going to have lunch together, but before we were going to leave, I gave her the wine cabinet. She seemed to like it. While she examined it, I went to make a phone call. I hadn't been out of sight more than 5 minutes when one of my employees came running into my office saying that something was wrong with my mom. When I went back to see what the matter was, I found my mom sitting in a chair beside the cabinet. Her face had no expression, but tears were streaming down her cheeks. No matter how I tried to get her to respond, she would not. She could not. It turns out that my mother had suffered a stroke. She was taken to the hospital by ambulance. She ended up suffering partial paralysis, losing her ability to speak and form words. She's since regained the ability to speak. She could understand things being said to her and could respond by pointing to letters of the alphabet to spell out words she wanted to say. When I asked her the following day how she was doing, she teared up and spelled out the words N-O-G-I-F-T, no gift. I assured her that I had given her a gift for her birthday, thinking that she didn't remember, but she became even more upset and spelled out the words H-A-T-E-G-I-F-T, hate gift. I laughed and told her not to worry. I told her I was sorry she didn't like the cabinet and that I would get her anything she wanted if she would just promise to get well soon. Still, I didn't associate anything that had happened with the cabinet itself or anything paranormal. Frankly, I don't even think I even used the term paranormal until last month. I'll try to make this short now. I gave the cabinet to my sister. She kept it for a week, then gave it back. She complained that she couldn't get the doors to stay closed and that they kept coming open. There are no springs in the door mechanism, and I have never found that the doors came open. I gave it to my brother and his wife, who kept it for 3 days and then gave it back. My brother said it smelled like jasmine flowers, while his wife insisted that it put out an odor of cat urine. I gave it to my girlfriend, who asked me to sell it for her after only 2 days. I sold it the same day to a nice middle-aged couple. 3 days later, when I came to open the shop for the day, I found the cabinet sitting at the front doors with a note that read, "This has a bad darkness." I have no idea what that meant. Anyway, I ended up just taking it home. Then things got even worse. Since the day I brought it home, I began having a strange recurring nightmare. Every time I have the horrible dream, it goes something like this. I find myself walking with a friend, usually someone I know well and trust at some point in the dream. I find myself looking into the eyes of the person that I'm with. It is then that I realize there is something different, something evil looking back at me. At that point in my dream, the person I'm with changes into what only can be described as the most gruesome, demonic-looking hag that I've ever seen. This hag proceeds then to beat the living tar out of me. I have awakened numerous times to find bruises and marks on myself where I had been hit by the old woman during the previous night. Still, I never related the nightmare to the cabinet, nor do I think that I ever would have. About a month ago, however, my sister and my brother and his wife came over to my house and spent the night. The following morning, during breakfast, my sister complained that she had had a horrible nightmare. She said that she recalled having had it a couple of times before and went on to describe my nightmare exactly to the last detail. My brother and his wife froze as they listened and then chimed in that they had both had the exact same dream during the night as well. The hair was standing up on the back of my neck and still is. As we talked, it became clear that the common denominator was that each of us had had the nightmare during the times that the cabinet was in our respective homes. I called my girlfriend and asked her if she could recall having any nightmares recently. She described the same nightmare, same hag, everything. When I asked her if she remembered the date when she had the nightmare, she said she did not. Then I asked her if it happened to be the night before she gave me the cabinet back to sell for her. She said, yeah. Hey, how did you know that? Now then, since my family discussion, it seems like all hell is breaking loose. For a week afterward, I started seeing what I can only describe as shadow things in my peripheral vision. In fact, numerous visitors to my house have claimed that they have also seen these shadow things. I put the cabinet in an outside storage unit and was awakened when the smoke alarm in the unit went off in the middle of the night. When I went to see what was burning, I opened the door and didn't see any smoke. However, I did get hit with the smell of cat urine. When I went back inside, the smell was in my house too. I do not own a cat and never have. I went back outside and grabbed the cabinet. I brought it back inside and tried to research it on the internet. While I was surfing the net, I fell asleep and once again had the same freaking nightmare. I woke up around 4:30 a.m. when I felt and smelled like someone was breathing on my neck to find that my house now smelled like jasmine flowers, and just in time to see a huge shadow thing go loping down the hall away from me. I would destroy this thing in a second, except I really don't have any understanding of what I may or may not be dealing with. I'm afraid, and I do mean afraid, that if I destroy the cabinet, whatever it is that seems to have come with the cabinet might just stay here with me. I have been told that there are people who shop on eBay that understand these kinds of things and specifically look for these kinds of items. If you are one of these people, please buy this cabinet and do whatever you do with a thing like this. Help me. You can see that I have no reserve price or minimum bid. If I can make things any easier, let me know and I will do everything within my abilities. One more note. On the same day my mom had her stroke, the lease to my store was summarily terminated without cause. The measurements are 12.5 inches by 7.5 inches by 16.25 inches. All of the items that I originally found inside the cabinet are included in the sale and will be delivered with the cabinet. This goes on for him to say that, you know, he's not religious. He doesn't know what one of the Hebrew words means. That no, he doesn't want exorcists and photographs at his house. You know, all the questions that he's being asked. He said he just wants someone to buy it. I'm sure this was a while ago because I've since seen this guy in one of the paranormal shows that I watch, where that Zach Baggins or whatever his name is. I'm sorry, I don't watch a lot of paranormal investigator shows, but the guy opened a haunted museum kind of thing, and he wanted all these cursed objects to either be brought in and given, or he bought them, or people just brought them in. And this guy with this dybbuk box brought it in and told this story. And when they left him alone with it, he became possessed. And I think it was no joke. I think it was a legitimate possession. I'm not sure the name of the show, but if you look for that Zach guy and the show where he opens his own museum of cursed and or haunted objects. So I know a lot of this was me reading that letter, but I thought it was really important and appropriate to read. I mean, just to sell this thing on eBay, first of all, I think it's very irresponsible to be selling this thing on eBay. I think that he still has this thing. I don't know if he decided not to part with it or what happened. He did say that he wanted to make sure that the person he's selling it to was an actual adult, you know, a responsible person who wasn't going to purposely, you know, unleash something, that he wasn't selling it to a kid who could possibly harm themselves. So that's all I have for you today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video on 10 cursed and or haunted objects. I'm going to be doing a series, like I said, so if you have any suggestions, please let me know. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, if you enjoyed hanging out with me and spending this time with me. Subscribe if you aren't already, and please spread the love and share this video. Also, please check out the description box for some important links. The live streams I do every week with Steve Stockton, Justice for Caleb Smith, the 2-hour live stream Steve Stockton and I did with Caleb Smith's mother, April Arrington. Please like, subscribe, share over there as well. Help out in any way that you can to help get justice for Caleb and his family. The podcast is coming soon. Also in the description box, links for PayPal and Patreon to make a donation to the channel if you are able and willing. Guys, be kind to each other. It doesn't cost anything and can gain you so much, make you feel so good. Kindness is like forgiveness. It's for the person doing it. Smile at a stranger. Always go in grace, and I will catch you guys next time. Have your best day. Have your best night. Love and appreciate all of you so much. Mwah. Bye-bye.